Right, YouTube, it's Shadow King Nazru, and I'm here with my review for the 2025 version of Superman, directed by James Gunn. You might be wondering why I'm not recording this on my laptop. Well, it turns out that after 6 years, uh, the laptop has been corrupted, and looks like I'm going to have to get a new one at some point in the future. But enough about my technical difficulties. Let's get on to the review, shall we? So basically, Superman is this is basically going to be. I can't really give all my full thoughts without doing spoilers. So if you didn't want to be spoiled and want to go to the movie fresh without any knowledge or any biases, I'm going to give you a 10 seconds uh, to leave the video and you go watch the movie on your own. Starting now. Okay, if you're still here, then you're probably don't care about spoilers or you've already seen the movie. So the movie basically covers Superman having troubles with his superhero antics, um, dealing with an international war, dealing with uh, how people perceive him, the whole conspiracy with that involves Lex Luthor and him trying to uh, get rid of Superman and fulfill his own agendas. And then you got the whole thing about the Justice Gang, and they're trying to help him out. But that's basically a short summary of what the Superman movie is about. All in all, I will say that I like the movie, but it does have its issues. Um, Now you've been watching me for a long time. You'll know that when it comes to my feelings about James Gunn, he's a pretty hit or miss director. I liked his Peacemaker. I liked his Peacemaker show. I liked his version of the Suicide Squad. I liked Creature Commandos, but I did not care about the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, or as I call it, the Guardians of Mediocrity. But that's more to do with that. I just don't care about the Guardians of the Galaxy as a premise in general. And the less we say about the Scooby Doo films, the better. Um, this does have. I mean, if you've seen James Gunn's movie, you kind of know what to expect. It'll have its strengths and its weaknesses. He definitely knows how to handle a whole bunch of characters, especially some who expect to get along together. And you actually manage to make them likable and give them somewhat reasonable motivations. And then you'll have the other issue where I say this less. This isn't so much a James Gunn thing, but it's more James Gunn doing the same problem that Marvel does as well. But it's mostly became an issue ever since I would say Joss Whedon did Avengers 2, where they tried to put in jokes in as many scenes as possible, even if it manages to undercut cut the scene. Like you'll have a scene that's supposed to be emotional or supposed to take you serious and give you time to reflect on something, and then they'll undercut it with a joke. Like when you'll have Superman and Lois Lane having a heated argument over Superman going to this foreign country and trying to stop a war using his was essentially his vigilantism, and Lois Lane is saying you can't do that just on yourself. You you need there's certain protocols for these situations. You need to check with the government officials, and Superman saying, "I'm not trying to start an international incident. I'm just trying to save lives. I'm not representing the American government. I'm just representing myself. I'm just trying to do what's right." And then there'll be some sort of joke um about something about being off the record, and it goes off way too. Some of the jokes go a little bit longer than they should. It's an issue that I've had with James Gunn's things with his writings, where at times his jokes can work, and then at other times they have the potential to work, but they go too long, and then they just overstay their welcome. So that's something he's going to need to work on in these upcoming DC films. Um, I've heard people say that there's a lot that this in the movie could feel overstuffed with the you have the whole thing with Superman. You're introducing new technologies. You're introducing the Justice Gang, uh, and I can understand that, but this feels this this doesn't feel an over. Well, there's a lot of things going on. It doesn't feel like there's these things are overstuffed and they have absolutely nothing in common. It feels disjointed. I say this is pretty much what I said with the when I said about the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I said there's a lot going on, but it definitely feels like these things belong together, and it definitely feels like they're setting things up. But the things they're setting up on the sidelines isn't intrusive. Whereas I feel like with Raimi Man 3, there's a lot of things going on, and it feels intrusive. None of these things really connect together, either, and it just felt like a mess. I guess I should probably talk about what they did with the characters. David Cornswith as I think that's what his name was as Superman. I I honestly think he does a pretty good job embodying what the general view of Superman is. He's very optimistic, hopeful. Well, you definitely feel like um, he's the humble superhero that, despite having these somewhat godlike powers, he's just trying to do the right thing, and he's not trying to lord over himself. And a bit of, like I already said, I gave the spoiler warning. He does have to come with this issue that this they did DC and James Gunn did something similar um, to what the Telltale's Batman game did, where they took if you played the Telltale's Batman game, it was revealed that Batman's parents, Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne, were involved in they. Whereas in the comics they were altruistic, moral, upstanding, upper class citizens. In the Telltale game, it turns out they were morally corrupt and involved in a lot of shady dealings, and that was partially led to their deaths. And Batman had to deal with the turmoil of that revelation. It shook what he understood about his family, and it shook what his why he uh, why he became Batman, because he did it partly to honor his family and to make sure that no child would ever have to go through that sort of loss again. Um, they did something similar to that in this movie, where Superman, in the comics, his parents, Jor-El and I forgot what his mother's name was. Uh, they were also altruistic, and they basically sent Kal-El to be an example to Earth to help people. Uh, Basically, to be a kind and humble superhero. Here, it's they basically turn him into Viltrumites, where he's supposed to supposed to conquer the people of Earth, and repopulate the Kryptonian race by having sex with as many women as possible. And for longtime comic fans, this is going to rub people the wrong way, and I get it. It just feels like an unnecessary change, and it feels like a slap in the face to well loved characters. And I wasn't too big of a fan of that. Uh, I mean, you could probably have Superman questioning. Questioning his superhero goals and what inspires him to be who he is, but without uh, taking down some of these characters that have been well known and established. Uh, but despite all of that, we still keep what the core of Superman is. Uh, but all in all, I still say that he did a good job. As for the woman who did Lois Lane, I would say honestly she does a pretty good job. You can still see that she has the sharp witted dialogue. She's very skeptical, always trying to seek the truth. Always willing to stand up to people like Superman and Lex Luthor. And in the hands of a wrong direction, this could go off into the whole girl boss situation and be very annoying. But James Gunn doesn't allow her to go that direction, and I very much appreciate that. So this honestly does feel like Lois Lane. I do feel that, and sometimes it can be a little bit too antagonistic. But all in all, it still feels like Lois that we've seen in the comics and the animated series. So I gotta give him props to do it. Uh, for Lex Luthor, I would say the new guy does a pretty solid job as Lex Luthor. Well, he wouldn't have been my first choice. It would have been that what's the name of that British bald guy who's in commercials sometimes, a whole bunch of movies. I can't remember his name. But if some of you are watching this, you probably know who I'm talking about. I think it was walking something. No, you'll know what I'm talking about if you know. That guy would have been the one I would have chosen for Lex Luthor, but I guess maybe they wanted to go with a younger actor so they could have him play off of David Cornsweet. But I say he did a pretty good, solid job. He captures Lex Luthor's xenophobia, his calm, collected sociopathic tendencies, his egomania, uh, and the bit of his superiority complex, or is it inferiority complex because he feels insecure that Superman has all these godlike abilities and is able to get people's attention, while Lex Luthor has to only rely on on his skills and his intelligence, and he just feels insignificant compared to Superman, and that's a real blow to his ego. That's pretty much been explored in this film, and I said that's a pretty good job. But then again, nothing could have been you have to be pretty. Sorry, it's getting hard to talk. You couldn't go anywhere but up after like Jesse Eisenberg. No offense to the guy, but he just wasn't the right guy to be playing Lex Luthor. And the script they had for him in Batman v Superman wasn't doing him any favors. Um, and basically, his plan was just frame Superman using this international conflict that he orchestrated. Uh, so he could have an excuse to kill Superman without any legal repercussions. And then he's the one who leaked the footage of Superman's biological parents trying to sending that message to they want Superman to take over the Earth, Which does have. I mean, that seems on paper is a good premise, but it does have some issues to it. And then, sorry, I had to do something real quick. He also has these mains. This one female character named Engineer, who is like this female who can make any kind of weapons with nanites. At first, when I saw the trailers, I thought that was like this supposed to be Mercy Graves because she's supposed to be his cyborg secretary or not secretary, bodyguard and enforcer. And then they have the other secondary antagonist is supposed to be Ultraman, but instead of being an evil Superman from another universe, it's basically supposed to be it's basically Ultraman in name only, and it's honestly more like Bizarro because he's a dim-witted clone of Superman that Lex Luthor is controlling. And you figure if you gotta figure James Gunn, if you're gonna have a dim-witted, uh, more or less evil Superman, you might as well just did Bizarro. I mean, and honestly, James Gunn probably would have done a pretty good job with Bizarro. He could do cover his backwards logic, and also makes Bizarro a sympathetic villain or slash anti-hero where he's trying to do the where he wants to be a hero, but his backwards logic kind of gets in the way and he makes up making things worse. Yeah, it's honestly a shame. I mean, but then again, it's like with Batman v Superman, they also tried to mix Bizarro's origin kind of with Doomsday, except they didn't use Superman's DNA; they used General Zod's DNA to make Doomsday. I just wondering is does Warner Brothers not want to do Bizarro or something, or DC doesn't want to do Bizarro? I don't know. Does somebody have something against doing Bizarro? Because I honestly think you could do a good movie with Bizarro. Um, let's see what was that. I suppose I should possibly talk about this. Uh, for those who've been keeping up with the leaks, they were wondering they're wondering if the leaks were telling about Lex Luthor using social media to damage Superman's reputation. Yeah, that part is true, and yes, they also includes using mind controlled monkeys to type in social media to slander Superman. And so yes, the whole thing about the monkeys, that part is true. Yes, it's stupid, but thank God for small mercies. It's not really focused on it, and it doesn't. It's just like for like a few seconds. It's more or less a blinking you miss it sort of situation. And I feel like maybe James Gunn saw the backlash for the leaks and said and realized that this was stupid. So if he had any plans to go further on this, then he probably cut that out and just re-edited the story. So if he did that, that was smart thinking. He probably shouldn't have done it in the first place, but well, it is what it is. And yeah, there's also was the bit when after Lex Luthor's plan falls apart and Superman pretty much humbles him, we see Lex Luthor start to cry, and my friend Dee Dee, when we were both watching this in theater, I was just looking at her like, seriously, Lex Luthor is crying, him of all people, and she basically called him a little bee. Yeah, I gave up cursing after. I gave up cursing years ago. But yeah, I did pretty much agree with the sentiment. That Lex Luthor kind of looked like a wuss after that. And if you want Lex Luthor to be stoic and not, I mean, not show such softer emotions like that, you might have that problem with the writing. But I mean, it didn't completely damage his character in my eyes. It's, but I should possibly also talk about the Justice Gang, who will probably later become the Justice League. Uh, we got Guy Gardner. Uh, I mean, I'll be honest. I'm like most DC fans. I'm not a Guy Gardner fan. I think he's pretty much just a dick, and he still pretty much is one. He's egotistical. Uh, can be confrontational, but at least he's a little bit more tolerable than how he usually is. And I still think that this whole Justice Gang thing is just basically going to tie into the Justice League. They're already building the Hall of Justice, and it turns that they're being funded, but they're being funded by Maxwell Lord. Who, if I recall correctly, is a Wonder Woman villain. So that pretty much, and they James Gunn already confirmed that Wonder Woman exists, and it's going to be either a show or a movie about Wonder Woman. So maybe that'll be tackled later. But aside from helping Superman out and stopping the international war, he's doesn't really have too much to do. But he still was a tolerable addition. Mr. Terrific, that guy was the one who shined the most, and I honestly would love to see either a movie or a series about him, kind of like Peacemaker. He definitely showed his intelligence. He did have some great one-liners and jokes. You could definitely see how he's one of the smartest people in the DC universe, and while he's not as smart as Lex Luthor, he could definitely contend with him. And he definitely has like the moral compass because he already could explain that while Lex Luthor is brilliant and it was impressive that he is able to create his own like pocket dimension, what he's doing was very reckless, and he pretty much proves to be right because Lex is a interdimensional prison that he tried to put Superman in. It really backfires because of Lex Luthor's ego and causes massive damage to the city. And then he definitely feels that he can. I'm sorry, I'm getting it's hard to talk so long and get my thoughts together. It definitely feels that this guy is a capable superhero, and I definitely did like the technology for the T spears. Definitely felt like you could see these things existing in this universe, and he always got things like a hover pod. Um, I definitely enjoyed his character the most. Then there was Hawk Girl, and yeah, I would say out of the three, she's the weakest member. She doesn't really have much to go on, and yeah, you could honestly have cut her out and nothing really would have changed much. So maybe James Gunn will have bigger plans for her later on, but I don't know. Then they also had Metamorpho who joins the Justice Gang King later in the film. I mean, at the end of the film. It's basically he was being imprisoned with Superman, and Lex Luthor was trying to force him to keep Superman in prison by having him use his body to chain. He could, he has the power to alter his body with any chemicals or products that he can imagine, and he uses them to create kryptonite to contain Superman, and he's doing this by holding Metamorpho's baby hostage, and you get to pity him. Um, but ultimately, Superman helps him find this baby. He does the right thing, and he helps against the international war, and decides to join Justice League. It was a small role, but I honestly did empathize with Metamorpho, and I'm hoping that we could see more with his character in some future project. what else is there to talk about? Uh, I mean, I like with Jimmy Olsen. I'm glad that it was. I'm glad he was in there, and his subplot did kind of help, as it helped was the exposing Lex Luthor's conspiracy. It would have been nice if you got to see more of the friendship between him and Superman, as that's one of the heartwarming and key factors of the Superman mythos. Yeah, I mean he's basically the I was going to say Rick Jones to Incredible Hulk, but if you haven't read the comics, you probably don't know who Rick Jones is, so skip that. But yeah, he's very integral to Superman's character in the mythos. And it would have been nice if we got to see more of the friendship between them. It would have been nice if we got a few scenes of them talking together, seeing Superman being comforted by Rick Jones. But so far it was just about him getting some evidence against Lex Luthor, and he basically has to deal with this girl that he's dating that's working for Lex Luthor, and that's basically the plot. Is there anything else? Um, I will say the action has been done very well. I know some people said that some people have some issue because it feels too over the top and too cartoonish and comic booky. Or like this is Superman. He's done with far outlandish things. I don't know what you guys were expecting. You can't. I guess maybe some people were just too used to the grounded superhero things like with Batman and to a lesser extent the Man of Steel. And don't get me wrong, I liked Man of Steel, but it was nice that we're still embracing the more fantastical things in this universe. I bet. Um, I don't think the CGI was as bad as a lot of people say it is. Um, but then again, I'm a person that doesn't really have too much of a problem with CGI as long as it's not horrendously bad. Like what was the movie that had horrendously bad CGI? Oh, like something like the last live action Resident Evil movie. You know that Welcome to Raccoon City, which despite being a more or less faithful adaptation, you could still tell it had a low budget and the CGI was just terrible. And they made some unnecessary changes. Uh, but yeah, as long as at least like seems like the CGI is completely handled, I really won't have much of a problem. But honestly, I think that's pretty much everything I had to say about. If I had to give it a score, I'd probably give like an 8 out of 10. So I will say I'm invested in this new universe, and I want to see what James Gunn is willing to do. I think the next thing he's got planned up is either Peacemaker or Green. I think it's Peacemaker, and yes, Peacemaker does make a cameo appearance, and oh yeah, and also Supergirl makes a cameo appearance. She makes it like in the post credits. No, not post credits. Near the end of the film. There's not really much to talk about them. They're just like small Easter eggs. No, not Easter egg cameos. Oh yeah, I almost forgot crypto. Crypto. A lot of people. There's a whole lot of promotion of crypto. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about crypto. They wanted to know: is he going to be intrusive to the story? Is he? Uh, the marketing has been heavily promoting him. They want to know if he's going to overshadow the story of Superman. He's not he's not that big into the film. He does have an integral role, but he's only in there when the plot needs him to be. It still is mostly Superman's movie, so if you're worried about that, you don't have to be. But all in all, I feel like that's everything I had to say about the film. I would give it like an 8 out of 10, and still looking forward to see what this universe has to offer. And I hope that the movie does well well, so we can get some really interesting stuff. So you tell me in the comment section down below. Did you see the movie? What did you think? And what do you hope to see in this film? So what do you think that James Gunn could do to improve on the DC universe and his what things he can thinks that he needs to address in terms of his writing? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll catch you mortals later.